Dalika, written by Rabindranath Tagore, and it is already written here. So all of you have to just recall and remember who is Rabindranath Tagore and what he received and what his family are involved with spatially. So these are the information we should at least know about Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, and it is good to remember too. Okay, so everybody right now it is knowing who is Rabindranath Tagore. First thing it will come that he is the first person who was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913. So this has been repeated, okay, since our childhood also, that who is the first person from India to receive, that is during a post-independence period, not after, okay, but this was happened during post-independent period. He got the award of Nobel Prize for Literature when his dramas or his writings were translated into English versions. So, Rabindranath Tagore was a poet, novelist, short story writer, and dramatist. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913. Tagore's interest in drama was fostered while he was a boy. When he was a boy, he was quite looking for that creativity. He developed in himself to keep on writing. Okay, maximum his thinking and his way of writing was given more focus to the writing of the drama. For his family enjoyed writing and staging plays. So entire family member also have this interest. Okay. So the music in his plays is instrumental in bringing out the delicate display of emotion around an idea. The central interest in his plays is the unfolding of character of the soul to enlightenment of thought. So this is all about Rabindranath Tagore. Moving ahead, that in this Chandalika, okay, main characters revolves around Prakriti, okay, Prakriti, the protagonist, okay, a young girl from the untouchable Chandal caste. Her encounter with Ananda, a Buddhist monk, awakens her self-worth. She struggles with the desire to possess him, which leads to a complex internal conflict. Prakriti undergoes a transformation, ultimately realizing that true love is about freedom, not possession. Second character is Ananda. Ananda is of Lord Buddha. He is a monk who through his compassionate act of accepting water from Prakriti inadvertently causes her emotional turmoil. He is a symbol of purity and detachment, but the spell cast upon him brings him to the brink of spiritual and emotional suffering. His struggle represents the conflict between earthly desires and spiritual purity. Prakriti's mother. Okay, third character is Prakriti's mother. Prakriti's mother is a Chandalini who practices magic. We can say black magic woman who practices magic, काला जादू करने वाला. ओके, जिसको डाइन के रूप में भी हम जानते हैं. ओके, so she reluctantly agrees to cast a spell on Ananda at her daughter's behest, even though she fears the consequences. She is a complex character who loves her daughter deeply, but her actions have tragic consequences, ultimately leading to her own death as she revokes the spell to save Ananda. So these are the characters, okay, that drive in this drama with their interactions illustrating themes of desire, spiritual conflict, caste discrimination, and self-realization. Okay, so these are the characters, okay, main characters that the story is revolving around. Then talk about main theme. Main theme of Chandalika, okay, is number one, the quest for dignity and self-identity. Okay, the quest for and self-identity, like Prakriti is moved by Ananda's recognition of her as an equal, defying the strict caste divisions that define life. Okay, and second main theme is the conflict between desire and detachment. This is also a central theme when Prakriti becomes obsessed with Ananda, not only for his attempt, but because he embodies freedom and prejudice and represents a life free from social shackles. Theme is liberation through self-acceptance, spiritual awakening. This highlights the play's message when Prakriti's journey reflects the realization that true liberation is not in possessing others or defying social structures out of rebellion, in embracing an inner dignity. Are the some things that we should all will learn and understand in this drama Chandalika written by Rabindranath, and everything okay about this it is in chapter, so you should read one or twice to understand entire thing mentioned in this chapter. Okay, it is very enjoyable, interesting, and warming too. I will say you will love to read. Okay, once you read this introduction, very what I will say enjoyable drama. You will enjoy. You will want to read again and again. So please read. It is quite long. Okay, so I'm skipping that introduction, but I will move with the Act 1 conversation and the dialogues exchange between the three characters, that is, okay, Prakriti, Ananda, and Prakriti's mother's Chandalini. Okay. So let us begin uh, with the act. How before we want the thing that it asks us is read out. So this is very important. Okay, after the discussion, you will get the answer for this. Okay, how does Prakriti's mother's react? She hears of Prakriti's encounter with the monk. So for this, after discussion, we will get the answer and the solution, our own solution to give answer. Okay, since since then, let us discuss. Mother, the drama in Act 1 with Mother. Okay. Mother, Prakriti, Mother is calling. Okay. Prakriti, where has she gone? Finding. What ails the girl? I wonder. She's never to be found in the house. Prakriti. I will not keep on saying okay Prakriti mother like that, okay, but I will keep on reading the sentences while you have attended where I am, okay. And one thing I always advise that keep your book in front of you. Might my voice glitches or any wrong pronunciation might occur during the discussion. So for that point of view, book is very important, and if it is everything all right, then no problem. You can hear again and again, and if you enjoyed, then please share with your classmates too. Let them enjoy my discussion too and come up properly in this subject. Here, mother, here I am. Where? Here, by the well. Whatever will you do next? Past noon and a blistering sun and the earth too hot for the feet. The morning's water was drawn long ago, and the other girls in the village have all taken their pots home. Why, the very crows on the amloki branches are grasping for heat, yet you sit and roast in the Vaisakh sun for no reason at all. There's a story in the Purana about how Uma left home and did penance in the burning sun. Is that what you are about? Yes, mother, that's it. I'm doing penance. Good heavens! And for whom? For someone whose call has come to me. What call is that? Give me water. He set the words echoing in my heart. Heaven, defend us. He said to you, give me water. Who was it? Someone of our own caste. So, till here, the conversation between mother and daughter had been taken, and in this part, Prakriti's mothers find her sitting outside by the well under the hot sun, puzzled as to why Prakriti would be out in such heat. Prakriti explains that she was doing penance for someone who asked her for water. Her mother was startled and questioned if the person was from their own caste, as interaction outside their caste would be seen as a violation. Prakriti replied that the man assured her he belonged to their kind, suggesting a connection that transcends caste barriers. That's what he said, that he belonged to our kind. You don't hide your caste. Did you tell him that you are a Chandalni? I told him yes. He said it wasn't true. If the black clouds of Shravana are dubbed Chandal, he said, what of it? It doesn't change their nature or destroy the virtue of their water. Don't humiliate yourself. He said, self humiliation is a sin worse than self murder. What words are these from you? Have you remembered some tale of a former birth? No, this is a tale of my new birth. You make me laugh. New birth indeed. Since when? Pray. It was the other day. The palace gong had just struck noon and it was blazing hot. I was washing that calf at the well, the one whose mother died then. A Buddhist monk came and stood before me in his yellow robes and said, give me water. My heart leaped with wonder. I started up trembling and bowed before his feet without touching them. His form was radiant as with the light of dawn. I said, I am a Chandalan and the well water is unclean. He said, as I am a human being, so also are you. And all water is clean and holy, that our heat and satisfies our thirst. For the first time in my life, I heard such words. For the first time, I poured water into his hands of a man that very dust of whose feet I would never have dared to. Mm. Oh, you stupid girl, for this madness. Don't you know what caste you were born in? Only once did the cup his hands to take the water from mine, such a little water, yet that water grew to a fathomless, boundless sea. In it float all the seven seas in one, and my caste was drawn, and my birth washed clean. So here in this conversation or dialogues between mother and daughter, Prakriti tells her mother about her transformative encounter with a Buddhist monk. She recalls her how he had asked her for water despite knowing she was a Chandalini. Chandalini means an untouchable, or you can say the black magic woman who cast spell. Okay, but Chandalini daughters here. Okay, that means the daughter of a untouchable, the low caste. When she confessed her low caste, the monk dismissed caste distinctions, saying all water is pure and all people are equally human. His words opened Prakriti's eyes to a new perspective, filling her with a profound sense of dignity and spiritual rebirth, which she describes as feeling washed clean of her caste identity. Her mother, however, was fearful and reprimands Prakriti for disregarding societal norms, warning her of the consequences. That is the reality in the society. Still it is existing till now in a far society villages we can see. Okay. It is not just theory or the drama or fiction here, but its reflection is reality in our society too. We are experiencing this type of still existence is there, but after education, changes are coming up. Okay, and this disturbs those persons, okay, in the society who still wants the caste distinction should continue. Okay, but education will one day will remove this. Let's see when it will be happen. We don't know. Okay, but one day I I think it will be over or not. God knows. Moving ahead with the further discussion conversation. Why even the way you speak is changed. He has laid your tongue under a spell. Do you understand yourself what you are saying? Was there no other water, mother, in all Sravasti city? So city name where both mother and daughter were living and the monk had visited was Sravasti city. Why did he come to this well of all wells? I may truly call it my new birth spiritually, okay? He came to give me the honor of quenching man's thirst. That was the mighty act of merit which he sought. Now, nowhere else could he have found the water which could fulfill his holy vow. No, not in any sacred stream. He said that Janaki bathed in such water as this at the beginning of her forest exile, and that Gohak the Chandal drew it for her. My heart has been dancing ever since, and night and day I hear those solemn tones. Give me water, give me water. I don't know what to make of it, child. I don't like it. I don't understand the magic of their spells. Today I don't recognize your speech. Tomorrow perhaps I shall not even recognize your face. Their spells can make a challenging of the no no changeling can make a changeling of the very soul itself. So here in this conversation, Prakriti continues to tell her mother about the monk's profound impact on her. She marvels at the way he chose her, a low caste girl, to give him water, considering it an act that has granted her new dignity, okay, and a sense of spiritual rebirth. She felt honored that he accepted water from her hands, comparing herself to Janaki, that is Sita, and Gohak, a Chandal who served her during exile, imprisonment. That means when Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita was exiled in the forest for 15 years. Her mother, however, is disturbed, fearing the monk's influence has changed Prakriti's speech and soul as if she's under a spell. All these days you have never really known me, mother. He who has recognized me will reveal me, and so I wait and watch. The midday gong Booms from the palace. The girls take up their water pots and go home. The kite soars alone into the far sky, and I bring my pitcher and sit here at the well by the wayside. For whom do you wait? For the wayfarer. Wayfarer. The wayfarer will come to you, you crazy girl. That one wayfarer, mother, the one and only. In him are all who fare along the ways of all the world. Day after day goes by, yet he does not come. Though he spoke no word, his word was given. Why does he not keep his word? For my heart is become like a waterless waste, where the heat haze quivers all day long. Its water cannot be given, for no one comes to seek it. I can make nothing of your talk today. It's as though you were intoxicated. Tell me plainly, what do you want? I can make nothing of your talk today. It's as though you were intoxicated. Tell me plainly, what do you want? I want him all unlooked for. He came and taught me this marvelous truth that even my service will count with the God who guides the world. Oh, words of great wonder that I may serve. I, a flower sprung from a poison plant. Let him raise that truth, that flower from the dust, and take it to his bosom. Be warned, Prakriti, these men's words are meant only to be heard, not to be practiced. The filth into which an evil fate has cast you is a wall of mud that no spade in the world can break through. You are unclean. Beware of tainting the outside world with your unclean presence. See that you keep to your own place, narrow as it is. To stray anywhere beyond its limits is to trespass. So the conversation continues until here the dialogue exchanged between mother and daughter. So Prakriti expresses how deeply the monk's words have moved her. She waits at the well, longing for him to return, believing he alone truly understands her and has given her life new purpose. He taught her that even she, as a low caste girl, has the dignity and ability to serve the divine. However, her mother dismisses this as dangerous nonsense, warning Prakriti to stay within her social boundaries and not let ideas of equality or purpose mislead her. Sings. Prakriti sings. Action is doing singing. Blessed am I, says the flower, who belong to the earth, for I serve you, my God, in this my lowly home. Make me forget that I am born on of dust, for my spirit is free from it. When you bend your eyes upon me, my petals tremble in joy. Give me a touch of your feet and make me heavenly, for the earth must offer its worship through me. Child, I'm beginning to understand something of what you say. You are a woman. By serving, you must worship, and by serving, you must rule. Women can, in a moment, overstep the bounds of caste. When once the curtains of this destiny are drawn aside, they all stand revealed in the queenliness. You had a good chance, when the king's son was deer hunting and came to this very well of yours. You remember, don't you? Yes, I remember. Why didn't you go to the king's house? He had forgotten everything in your beauty. So here the conversation has been exchanging, and Prakriti expresses her joy at discovering her purpose. She feels blessed like a flower rooted in the earth but able to offer herself to God. She hopes to transcend her origins and find a sense of purity and divinity through this service. That means through her service, her mother begins to understand her yearning, acknowledging that women, through devotion and service, can change social boundaries and attain a form of power. She reminds Prakriti of a missed opportunity with a prince who admired her beauty, hinting at a more traditional path to status and fulfillment. Why didn't you go to the king's house? He had forgotten everything in your beauty. Yes, he had forgotten everything, forgotten that I was a human being. He had gone out hunting beasts. He saw nothing but the beast whom he wanted to bind in chains of gold. At least he noticed your beauty, if only a game to be hunted. As for the bhikshu, does he see the woman in you? You won't understand, mother, you won't. I feel that in all these days, he is the first who ever really recognized me. That is a marvelous thing. I want him, mother. I want him beyond all measures. I want to take this life of mine and lay it like a basket of flowers at his feet. I will not defile them. Let everyone marvel at my daring. I shall glory in my claim. I am your handmaid. I shall declare, for otherwise I must lie bound for ever at the whole world's feet, a slave. So here Prakriti explains that the prince viewed her only as a prize to be captured, not as a human being. Unlike the bhikshu, the monk, that means, okay, who truly saw her as an equal. She tells her mother that this recognition is precious, awakening a profound desire to devote herself to him, not as a slave, but as a willing servant offering herself wholeheartedly. She longs to serve him with pride and dignity, transcending the limitations imposed by society and caste instead of remaining submissive to the world's judgment. I hope till here you have been enjoying to listening the discussions, and I have been just avoiding the dialogue who said one after another. Okay, it will it just take more time. So better you have little bit your self interest in reading too. So let us continue with the explanation. Why do you get so excited, child? You were born a slave. It's the writ of destiny. Who can undo it? Fie, mother. I tell you again, don't pollute yourself with this self-humiliation. It's a sin. Plenty of slaves are born of royal blood. But I am no slave. Plenty of Chandals are born of Brahmin families, but I am no Chandal. I don't know how to answer you, child. Very good. I'll go to him myself and cling to his feet. You accept food from every home. I'll say, come to our house too and accept from our hands at least a ball of water. Prakriti here rejects her mother's belief in fate and destiny, refusing to accept that she is born a slave or Chandal by nature. She insists that self humiliation is wrong and that one's caste doesn't define one's worth. Her mother, unable to counter Prakriti's arguments, finally agrees to approach the monk herself. She decides to ask him to honor their home by accepting water from them, hoping to bring him closer to Prakriti. No, no, I'll not call him in that way from outside. I'll send my call into his soul for him to hear. I am longing to give myself. It is like a pain at my heart. Who is going to accept the gift? Who will join with me in give and take? Will he not mingle his longings with mine as the Ganges mingles with the black waters of Jamuna? For music springs up of itself, and he who came unbinded has left behind him a word of hope. What is the use of one pitcher of water when the earth is cracked with drought? Will not the clouds come of themselves to fill the whole sky? The rain seek the soil by its own weight. What is the use of such talk? If the clouds come, they come. If they don't, they don't. If the crops wither, it's no concern of theirs. What more can we do than sit and watch the sky? That won't do for me. I won't simply sit and watch. You know how to work spells. Let those spells be the clasps of my arms. Let them drag him here. What are you saying, rich girl? Is there no limit to your ruthlessness? It would be playing with fire. Are these bhikshus like ordinary folk? How am I work spell on them? I shudder even to think of it. You would have worked them boldly enough on king's sons. King's king's son. I'm not afraid of the king. He might have had me impelled perhaps, but these men, they do nothing. I fear nothing any longer except to black, sink back again, to forget myself again, to enter again the house of darkness. That would be worse than that. Bring him here, you must. I speak so boldly of such great matters. Isn't that in itself a wonder? Who worked the wonder but he? Shall there not be further wonders? Shall he not come to my side and sit with me on the corner of my cloth? Suppose I can bring him. Are you ready to pay the price? Nothing will be left to you. So, till here, Prakriti feels a deep, consuming desire to be united with the monk on a spiritual level, comparing their union to rivers merging or rain quenching a parched land. She urges her mother to use magic to summon him, revealing her readiness to sacrifice anything to avoid returning to her former life of obscurity. Her mother is fearful, hesitant to use spells on a monk and warns there may be a steep price to pay, but Prakriti is undeterred, willing to risk everything. No, nothing will be left. The burden and heritage of birth after birth. Nothing will remain. Only let me bring it all to an end. Then I shall live indeed. That's why I need him. Nothing will be left me. I have waited for age, and now in this birth my life shall be fulfilled. My mind saying it over and over again. It was for this that I heard those wonderful words. Give me water. Today I know that even I can give. Everyone else had hidden the truth from me. I sit and watch for his coming today to give everything I have. Have you no respect for religion? How can I say I respect him who respects me? A religion that insults is a false religion. Everyone united to make me conform to a creed that blinds and gags. But since that day, something forbids me to conform any longer. I'm afraid of nothing now. Chant your spells. Bring the bhikshu to the side of the Chandalini. I myself shall do him honor. No one else can honor him so well. Aren't you afraid of bringing a curse upon yourself? There has been a curse upon me all my life. Poison kills poison, they say. So one curse another. Not another word, mother, not another word. Begin your spells. I cannot bear any more delay. Very well then, what is his name? His name is Ananda. Ananda, the disciple of Lord Buddha. Yes, it is he. So here in this part, Prakriti expresses her intense longing to be free from the limitations of her birth and the societal restrictions placed on her because of her caste. She believes that meeting Ananda, a Buddhist monk who showed her respect and dignity, has awakened her true self-purpose. She urges her mother to perform a spell to bring Ananda to her, convinced that this union will fulfill her life's destiny. Despite her mother's warnings of potential curses, Prakriti is resolute and fearless in her desire. Oh, my heart's treasure, you are the apple of my eye, but it's a great wrong. I'm putting my hand to at your binding. What wrong? I will bring to my side the one who brings all near. What crime is there in that? They draw men by the strength of their virtue. We drag them with spells, as beasts are dragged in a noose. We only churn up the mud. So much the better. Without the churning, how can the well be cleansed? O thou excited one, thy power to forgive is greater far than my power to offend. I am about to do thee dishonor, yet I bow before thee. Accept my obeisance, Lord. So here Prakriti insists that summoning Ananda through a spell is not a wrong, as she sees it as a way to bring herself closer to enlightenment and self-worth. Her mother, though hesitant and feeling guilty, agrees to perform the spell but acknowledges the moral conflict. Using spells is like forcibly capturing someone, dishonoring the monk's purity and virtues. Ultimately, the mother prays that Ananda's compassion and forgiveness will outweigh her actions. What are you afraid of, mother? Yours are the lips I use, but it's I who chant the spells. If my longing can draw him here, and if that is a crime, then I will commit that crime, the crime. I care nothing for a court which holds only punishment and no comfort. You are immensely daring, Prakriti. You call me daring. Think of the might of his daring. How simply he spoke the words which no one had ever dared to say to me before. Give me water. Such little words, yet as mighty as flame. They filled all my days with light. They rolled away the black stone whose weight so long had stopped the fountains of earth. Your fear is an illusion, for you did not see him. All morning he had begged alms in city. When his task was done, he came across the common past, the burning ground along the river, the hot sun on his head, and all for what? To say that one word, give me water, to a girl like me. Oh, it is too wonderful. Whence did such grace, such love come down upon a wretched, unworthy, beyond all others? What can I fear now? Give me water, yes, the water which has filled all my days to overflow. I must needs give, or which I must needs give or die. Give me water. In a moment I knew that I had water, inexhaustible water, to whose joy, and so I call him night and day. If he does not fear, not your spell, he will be able to bear it. Look, Prakriti, some men in yellow robes are going by the road across the common. So they are all the monks of the Sangha. I see. Don't you hear them chanting? The chant is heard in the distance. To the most pure Buddha, mighty ocean of mercy, Sir of knowledge, absolute, pure stream of the world's sin and suffering, the destroyer. Solemnly to the Buddha I bow in homage. So, till here, Prakriti tells, okay, or expresses her deep admiration for the monk Ananda, who has shown her kindness and respect by simply asking for water. She feels that his words, give me water, have brought light and joy into her life, breaking emotional barriers she has long faced. She is willing to commit what she sees as a crime by summoning him through disregarding societal codes. Her mother, on another hand, remains fearful and hesitant but notices the monks passing by as Prakriti eagerly anticipates Ananda's arrival. Oh, mother, see, he is going there ahead of them all. He never turned his head or looked to this well. He could so easily have said, give me water more before he went. I thought he would never be able to guide me, his own work, his new creation. Chiefly, what action is going on, okay? This dust, this dust is your place, O wretched woman, who raised you to bloom for a moment in the light, fallen in the end into this same dust. You must mingle for all time with this same dust, trampled underfoot by all who travel the roads. Child, dear child, forget it all. They have broken your momentary dream, and they are going away. Let them go, let them go. When a thing is not meant to last, the quicker it goes, the better. So another question here it is asked, okay, that what I have read I shall discuss after this. Will Prakriti resign herself to her lot? So the answer we will get after the discussion. But the previous questions was that answer I think we have received. Day after day, this cry of desire, moment by moment, this burden of shame, this present bird is my breast that beats its wings unto that. Do you call it a dream? A dream it that sinks its sharp teeth into the uh, fibers of my and will not loosen its grip, and they who have no ties, no joy or sorrow, no earthly float along like the clouds in autumn are only they awake, are only they real. Oh Prakriti, I can't so. Come, get up, I will chant the spells. I will bring him all along the dusty road. I will bring him. I want nothing, he says in his pride. I'll break that pride and make him come, running and crying, I want, I want. So, till here in this scene, Prakriti is devastated that the monk Ananda has passed by without acknowledging her or asking for water again. She feels rejected and falls to the ground in despair, blaming herself for her lowly status. Her mother tries to comfort her, suggesting she let go for the dream and accept the reality that things were not meant to be. Prakriti, however, expresses her pain, feeling trapped by her desires and shame. Her mother, seeing her suffering, finally relents and promises to chant spells to bring Ananda back, determined to force him to acknowledge Prakriti's longing. Mother, yours is an ancient spell, as old as life itself. Their mantras are raw things of yesterday. These men can never be a match for you. The knot of their mantras will be loosened under the stress of your spells. He is bound to be defeated. Where are they going? Going? They are going nowhere. During the rains, they remain 4 months in penance and fasting, and then they are off again. How should I know where? That's what they call being awake. Then, Then why are you talking of spells, you crazy thing? He is going so far. How am I to bring him back? No matter where he goes, you must bring him back. Distance is nothing for your spell. He showed no pity to me. I shall show none to him. Chant your spell. Your cruelest spells, wind them about his mind till every coil bites deep. Whenever he goes, he shall never escape me. You need not fear, it is not beyond our powers. I will give you this magic mirror. You shall take it in your hand and dance. His shadow will fall on the dark courtyard, its nest broken in the storm, even so shall he be willed helpless to our doors. The thunder throbs in my heart, my mind is filled with the lightning flash. The waves form high in an ocean whose shore I cannot see. Think will even now, lest sudden terror spring upon you with the work half done, can you endure the end? When the spell has reached its height, it would cost me my life to undo it. Remember that this fire will not die down till all that will burn is burnt to ashes. For whom are you afraid? Is he a common man? Nothing will hurt him. Let him come. Let him tread the path of fire to the very end. Before me, I see in vision the night of doom. the storm of union, the bliss of the breaking of worlds. So, here in this part of conversation, Prakriti urges her mother to use her powerful ancient spells to bring Ananda back to her. She dismisses the monk's simple mantras as ineffective, believing her mother's magic is much stronger despite her mother's warnings about the dangerous consequences of such powerful spells. Prakriti insists that nothing can stop her from binding Ananda to her. She envisions a storm of destruction where Ananda will be forced to no matter where he goes. Her obsession with him drives her to seek her intense, irreversible union. So, Act 1 till here we have completed the discussion and conversation between mother and daughter, and we have seen how strong desire was with Prakriti and want Ananda very much, in spite of her societal differences. So overall, Act 1 of Chandalika, okay, Prakriti, as we know, a young Chandal woman marginalized by the caste system, endures deep feelings of unworthiness. Her life changes when Ananda, a compassionate Buddhist monk, asks her for water, defying societal norms that deem her untouchable. So this act of kindness sparks Prakriti's inner awakening, challenging her long about her identity and worth. Act 1 thus explores the harsh effects of caste discrimination and marks the beginning of Prakriti's journey towards civilization and empowerment. So finally, in Act 1, the model that we learn or we get ourselves is that through true liberation comes from recognizing one's inherent worth beyond societal labels and discrimination. So, these are the things which I have discussed. If you have enjoyed Act 1 of Chandalika, so please like and share to your classmates and let them enjoy too. Till then, read and revise. We'll next video with Act 2 of Chandalika. So thank you and have a happy reading. Thank you.